everyone, welcome. Our third edition of the monthly webinar series. I appreciate a little bit more of an audible. Let me play an audible here. I know that we were told that we're going to do something about what good looks like. With everything that I've had for conversations, I've moved that episode back one. We're going to talk about classification and sensor fusion because that has been a hot topic here in September. Just a few housekeeping things. The chat is disabled, or at least it's supposed to be disabled. So if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A button. That's if you're on Teams, that is just right to the right of chat usually. If you need something, raise your hand, and of course also my text is working as well. In the meantime, also, I'll go ahead and ask in advance. A lot of this we're going to talk about here is based upon conversations I'm having throughout the month of September. If you find there's something that's really burning for you as a knowledge button that you'd like to press for October for our next event, please go ahead and give us a ring. Let us know what you want us to talk about. So with that in mind, without further ado, let's jump into this. We're going to talk about today why classification and sensor fusion is important in regards to our friends and folks over at Security Operations. So as a provider of security products, security solutions, we have a basic need and a basic process premise that we need to provide to the market. And that's all of us. That's all of us in this market. We need to be supporting security operations with increased speed, accuracy, and context. I know y'all heard me say that before. In this context, what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about three things specifically for speed, accuracy, and context: optimizing PTZ targeting, reducing false alarms, and activating a specific response and playbook, giving you that context. So let's start an exercise. That exercise is going to be, let's define what our alarms are. We're going to play a little hypothetical here today. So when we define an alarm, what does a real alarm mean to us? First off, it's a minimum parameters of a situation that requires a response, whether that response be automated, or be digital, or be virtual, or be live with a human. So in this exercise, we're going to look at two specific alarms. One is a human within 5 meters or 16 feet of the facility, and a vehicle entering or exiting the transition area in the south area or east area gates. Specifically, those are our two alerts. When we talk about sensor fusion, let me walk you through that workflow. So a radar detects motion. Now, hopefully that radar has some noise filters. We know one that has some great noise filters to kind of minimize things like nuisance noise, reflections, refractions, things like that. So hopefully it goes to that. Once it goes to that process, it's going to do two things. It's going to put two workloads in place. One, it's going to slew a PTZ to the offending target of motion, and it's going to plot that target on a GIS representation. Once it slews the PTZ, by the way, that's their second sensor, it's going to take a third sensor, which is a classifier, and it's going to access that stream from the classifier. In the meantime, the radar is going to keep that offending target of motion in the field of view of the PTZ to make sure that we have a heads up of what is exactly moving and where and when. So the first AND gate we get to is, does the video depict a qualified target? If no, radar returns the PTZ to home, or maybe if it's already engaged in something else, moves to the next target. If yes, we then do a second AND gate, which is the target fit for the alarm rule? What were our alarm rules? Human within 5 meters, vehicle entering or exiting the target areas for the gates. If both of those are yes, we finally have an alarm. So now we can update the alarm status within the video management system or the PACS or the PSIM. And of course, when that event is completed, we return the radar to its PTZ or home, PTZ home, or move to the next target. All right, so I'm gonna, now that we have all that down, I'm gonna play about 2 minutes of video, talk about some things in it. We're gonna count the detections and count the alarms. What's interesting about this, we have a lot of things going on here, and you'll see some filtering going on. You'll see some other pieces going on. What's interesting is when things become alarms and what happens when those alarms happen, and the context you get from looking at just the map. Because it's interesting, because you can get a lot of context if you have a correct deployment of your GIS mapping and you have the correct deployment of your tiles within your VMS or your PAC system. You'll notice that some things keep moving around. Some things are white, some things are green. Excuse me for 1 second. You'll see some things being ignored. Well, there's our first piece of real context. Before we even spun the PTZ around, actually not before but once we spun the PTZ around, we don't even have to see the PTZ to know that that offending target over on the left-hand side of your screen is a human. Why? Because it's green and it's got a little human factor on it. So you're getting great knowledge and great context by just looking at a map. Now that human has moved into the area where we don't want humans. 5 meters from the defense. Now we know we have an active alarm just simply by looking at what's on the map screen. Again, great context with multi-sensor fusion. As we move on and we start saying now, something came into that area, through the PTZ room, moved to it, we know that that's a vehicle in that area. We know because it's orange and it's got a car. We have some other things up top there, and apologies that it's off the map, but those were cows, for those people who've seen this video before. And those cows were then ignored, and even though it's blinking, no alarm was sent to the VMS. So again, lots of context. Ready. I'll forward through a little faster here, just to kind of finish up for those people who are counting. At the end of 2 minutes and 20 seconds of video, what did we see? Well, we saw 17 different detections. So without sensor fusion, we got 17 detections. With sensor fusion, also 17 detections. The difference becomes what happens when we have sensor fusion versus not. Number of alarms, if you did not use sensor fusion, you'd get 12 alarms from that 2 minutes and 20 seconds of video. Or action. With sensor fusion, you only had 2. So the sensor itself was able to disqualify 5 detections as noise, filtered out, whether it be motion that happened out of its field of view, it was motion that was not regarded as point, maybe it was a bird or something else. Doesn't matter. They negated 5 of those 17. However, with sensor fusion, you disqualified 15 of 17 detections, leaving you with only 2 real alarms. That's significant nuisance alarm reduction. And the last thing I thought about as I was looking through this is how much time is on your PTZ. When your PTZ in motion, it's going to be moving at higher rates. There's going to be more data being done. Many people are setting their PTZs to move at higher frames per second when it's in motion versus when it's not. So PTZ at home without sensor fusion, only 18% of the time. That means for the remaining 82% of the time, it's at highest rate of storage and use. The opposite, the other way, 72% of the total time with sensor fusion, that PTZ is at home. So besides all that, not only does multi-sensor fusion make sense from an operation standpoint, but also placement matters for what you want to accomplish. If you're looking for speed, you want to consider faster communication because that equals faster response. If you're looking for accuracy, you want better tracking control. So you want to manage your placement in that regard. If you want context, the who or what is when or where, you're going to also do some additional things. What are those additional things? Well, think about this. This is actually a really good, I don't really have anything to complain about from this layout, or not the layout, but this deployment, because it was very significant. But if you start looking at how the operation works, we could do a little better when it comes to the context we're grabbing here graphically. Where are these video streams versus where they are on the field of view of the map? Where are things happening? What context are we grabbing from each side? Again, no complaints, because this was a significantly complex area with lots going on. And between handoffs and trade-offs and things like that, it was able to take care of all the people that were moving, all the vehicles that were moving, and reduce the number of false alarms, nuisance alarms, to almost none. Excuse me. Thanks for those people who've already started putting some Q&As. Those are awesome. Appreciate it. We're going to be getting those in just a second. So if you're looking for speed, you want that faster communication, faster response, you're going to want to put things closer together. You're going to want to have your mass service running right next to your radar and right next to your camera. You're going to want your AI to be where it does the most good for your VMS, right? Your AI closer to your VMS. You want better tracking control. Again, you're going to want those sensors closer together. Context. Where you put things in your map, where you put things on your VMS. You want your alarm zones and your mapping zones and your VMS layout for assets to be in a way that makes more contextual clarity for the people that are operating. I'm going to finish this up with a little bit of a financial data for those people who joined us for last time and gave me a lot of feedback. I do appreciate all the other data nerds out there, and I appreciate all the feedback there. Keep it coming. I took a hypothetical sample installation. You see that over on the right-hand side, the left-hand side, radar only. What the nuisance alarm rate is, what the operator time is, annual costs, so interdiction success rates, damage per incident. And then you see over on the right-hand side what happens if you do true sensor fusion. So one of the things to point out, the nuisance alarm rate, based upon the thing we just went through, the exercise we just went through a few slides back, it had 88% nuisance alarm rate. Whereas with sensor fusion, you had a less than 1%. How you get less than 1%, but since you can't have zero, you have to have less than 1%. The other thing I thought was really interesting is a 70 to 90% ROI with sensor fusion. So not only do you get a better operation, you also get a number of financial returns by doing sensor fusion over doing radar only. And just as a point, as we close down here, looking at different things for optimizing PTZ targeting, the key here is what's moving in your facility, what needs attention, what needs identification, what can you see and what can't you see. If you notice back there in the back, you can't even tell there's a human back there, but because we'd already identified them, we know exactly where they went. So with that, I move to the Q&A. So I appreciate y'all letting me run through that. It was a very quick one for today, so hopefully have lots of great Q&A to follow us through. I also have Yaron and I also have Nicole with me to help out. And maybe there's some things that are being...
I put a question there just to start a discussion. However, I don't see any, unless I'm missing something, I don't see any questions in the Q&A.
Okay, great. And I got that question. I also have a couple other questions again. Adam, I appreciate you always having a question in my text. All right, so the answer to the question here, can radar be used without sensor fusion? Absolutely. Now, the difference is the application it's being used for. So there are lots of radar systems out there, and there are a number of different sensors. I believe Magos has a fantastic sensor. Our specs are really, really good. They reach out very far. There's a lot of things that would do for filtering, as I mentioned earlier, but it's two different applications. One of them is, where's motion happening? Let's get some eyes on it. The other one is, how do we figure out if that thing that's moving is an alarm? That's two different applications. And so if you look at it, I don't want to get in trouble with anybody here, but radar without analytics, without sensor fusion, is a lot like super PIR. I've got an area of motion. I've mapped that area of motion out. When I see motion there from whatever sensor I have, be it fence detection, whatever, I want to spin a PTZ around to take a look. What you haven't done there is you haven't moved the machine to human handoff as far as you can to the right. So when you don't do that, you're adding time to your response, you're adding time to your classification, and you're adding confusion to your operations in many cases. Okay, what does WIGGLE stand for? What good looks like. So in operations, and this is a Six Sigma type thing, you want to know what the goal is. What is the goal of the perfect operation? If you could do everything perfectly, what would that look like? If you could do everything good enough to survive, to thrive, to meet a certain standard, what does that look like? When you get those what good looks likes out of the way, now you can start to have a plan to reach from where you are through the gap to what good looks like. So appreciate that one.
Stephen, there's a few questions in the Q&A. I've been trying to type to reply, but if you'd like, I could read them out loud to you, or if you want to.
Yeah, so Greg asked a question, can we update existing systems? Update how? I'm curious.
So I don't know. We'll give Greg a minute or two to type because I don't think he could unmute himself.
Yeah.
But
No.
I added into. Sorry, go ahead, Stephen.
And you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So there is a drone detection offering as well, Greg. And so those are actually I think you're looking at one of the drone detecting radars on the right side of your screen there. On the left side of your screen, you'd be looking at a ground focused radar on that one, just below the cameras. What I will say, while Greg may be trying to give us some more context, is yes, additional systems that are already installed can be upgraded, and that's typically something that happens through the certified authorized partners, or we contracted through Magos to come out with professional services. We typically, because a lot of what our AI is done from a classifier perspective, everything is built into the classifier that gets deployed. So if we have updates to the classifier, that's part of the existing upgrade. There's a lot of value to that, which includes we maintain our security level on that appliance because we don't have any holes that have opened up by just updating one piece that might have brought in a blank spot or a blind spot. And there's also the ability to be able to manage multiple different updates within one upgrade package if we just do the whole package at one time.
Greg clarified his question. Sorry, Stephen, I didn't mean to step over you, but Greg clarified his question asking if sensor fusion, meaning mass plus AI, can be added to existing sites without AI.
Oh, and that one is absolutely. So our AI, I hate to say it that way, but our classifier runs on a Magos appliance. So if you have an existing working system and it's already using mass service, not mass AI service, you can add an appliance that will then bring the mass AI service into your environment. Now, there are some caveats there. We could go over them in nauseam here, but I think I'd probably lose half the audience. So, Greg, if you have something specific, let's connect offline, and I'll figure out, make sure that those specifics are going to help you, or versus, cause us some sort of caveat. I was actually just saw another text come in. Can you use the analytics on the camera instead of your AI? The answer is yes. But the answer is, again, that's a different application than what Magos typically gets engaged with. Spinning a PTZ over. I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
Nope.
Okay, you're spinning the PTZ over to where you're slewing the PTZ over to where the motion is happening, and then you're allowing the camera's analytics to take over. Absolutely, it's one of the things that happens, but it is a different application. All you're doing is, in that regard, is you're kind of putting an AI wrapper on top of the, I hate to say again, the super PIR methodology of radar as an actuator. The other point about it too is that for those people, especially, we do a lot of military, DoD, DOJ, and other high security solutions. For those people who know how to defeat motion-based classification, we don't have that problem. So we're doing scene-based classification, not motion-based classification, which is what exists on most, if not all, cameras. So for somebody who's doing stops and starts, they're going to be able to defeat what happens with a camera-based classifier, versus if they're in the scene, they're going to be designated as in the scene whether they're moving or not moving.
Another question, Stephen. I see Bill Parker, can the radar be used with Axis Perimeter Defender? We do have a lot of applications that work in tandem with the Perimeter Defender. And for example, it will go into the Genetec RSA, but usually, as you can see on the picture on the right, when we work very closely with Axis and Axis cameras, but we do basically radar detection and classification based on moving the camera with our stuff, and then you can combine that with Axis Perimeter Defender on some of the fixed cameras that are around, or cameras that do not have radars, and all can go into like a Milestone or a Genetec RSA or any of the other systems. So we do have a lot of applications that work together with that, and that's part of, again, sensor fusion that goes beyond just the radar detection.
I'll
Much
just
better than
add
I
that
would've
we
explained it.
also
Thank you.
have I'll add that we also have an integration to Access Camera Station. That's one of the common questions when we're talking about the total Access portfolio.
And I see that, Nicole, I believe you answered Quentin's question about most PTZs. But just to put a finer point on that, I tried to count up the number of VMSs that we support or that we've been installed against. And I want to say that number is somewhere north of 30. That doesn't mean that we do all of them, but we are as open as humanly possible. On the other hand, from a camera side, I think that's well above 40 that I can count that we've done an installation with somewhere within our scope here in North America. And it really is a PTZ that supports ONVIF Profile S. I believe also some Profile M support direct positioning as well. I have one more thing that was texted to me from Donnie. Donnie, I appreciate you waiting. And this is actually a really interesting one. I think I actually might have a thing from last time when I talk about the machine to human handoff. And I know I talk about that a lot, but it really has to do with speed. So speed, accuracy, context. Speed is a lot about the machine to human handoff. And this actually would kind of follow on with the using the radar without sensor fusion versus with sensor fusion. Without sensor fusion, you're doing detection. And so you're waiting for other systems including humans, to do your classification, your validation. Last week or last month, we talked about how handing that classification and validation off to a human meant that you could go as high as 75 seconds, almost a minute and a half before, and actually a minute and a quarter, until you actually had validation and you're ready for response with appropriate context and everything else. With sensor fusion, you move that human handoff all the way over to validation. And so with that, you've done something in 5 seconds, you've saved 70 seconds, and now you're ready for response with the right amount of context. So when we explain machine to human handoff, that's a lot about speed, context, diplomacy, and everything else. So hopefully that answers your question. If not, ring me up and we'll have a better conversation about it. With that in mind, it looks like unless I'm missing something, Nicole, it looks like I might have missed something. I might have run out of questions. Oh,
Stephen, there's one more question from Quentin in the Q&A. How do you recommend shunting, removing nuisance alarms such as normal operation of a main vehicle gate? We wouldn't necessarily want to exclude the entire gate area since we still want to know if someone entered the perimeter through this area, such as by jumping the fence.
Very good point. So one of the reasons why you set the minimum amount of parameters to when you have to humanly interact with something, the reason why you do it that way is so you can be able to tell when you have to go the extra step for somebody's in the gate or not in the gate versus someone jumping the gate. And so shunting those, again, that's a human thing where you can actually say, no, that's active. You could also, through your VMS, integrate with your PAC system or your gate management system. So when the gate is opened effectively or appropriately, you now can say, I've cleared that event, because that event, yes, there was a vehicle there, but shortly after that vehicle showed up in that area, an adequate identification was placed. It opened the gate appropriately, and that vehicle moved through. However, what happens if someone runs up behind that vehicle? You might want to know that. But hopefully that answers your question. All right, now, short and sweet, 30 minutes in. I appreciate everyone joining us here. If there are any more questions, or by all means, if there are any more thoughts about what you want to see in this series, please reach out. Nicole, myself, Yaron, anyone on the Magos team, let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what concern you have, and we'll address it in another episode. Thank you again for being here. We will be getting out the link to the recording, so you'll be able to have this for your own edification. Again, we're here to help. Bring us on site. Let us show you what we can do. Thanks, everyone. Have a great month in October. If you're going to GSX, come see us.